Hey, good afternoon, peeps. Just sitting here drinking some coffee with my wife and my dogs, and I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about maybe not far history like I have been talking about, but certainly my history. And question for you is: have you ever thought about making a movie? So I'm sitting here making a video for you, and maybe something you didn't know about me was that when I went to college the first time, when I was 21 years old, I was actually in film school. And my first film, which was on Super 8, got played in a festival, which I was pretty proud of because it was my first film. But that's what I always wanted to do when I was younger. I had seen all of Alfred Hitchcock's movies, and I loved Alfred Hitchcock, and I loved old movies, and I wanted to make movies. But life got in the way. Things happened, had children, didn't, it's not all cut and dried. So sometimes you have to you have to push what you want to do to the back and do it later. Well, kind of trying to do it now, but maybe in a different way, maybe not quite as, Alfred Hitchcockish, as it were. Although you may think this is kind of scary, but that's okay. That's all right. I'm not a really scary guy. But I did want to talk to you about how, if you've ever thought about doing a screenplay. I was actually researching this and doing a little research on it to bone up on it and remember, what I had learned in college. And we were talking about how to create these screenplays. And so there's a specific format kind of that you go by to set up and to do these screenplays such that they build, into a proper story. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about it, and I wanted to give you a thought experiment at the end so you can kind of figure out whether or not you'd like to do that or not, right? So when you're writing a screenplay, the first thing you want to do is do a setup. That's the stage one. Stage one is setting up the characters so that everyone knows who they are. And what's interesting about all of this is, even if you don't want to write screenplays, you'll watch movies differently when you know this is how they're putting together the drama. So you see the different stages in it, right? So there's the stage one, which is the setup, and we get to know the characters. We bond with them, figure out who they are, and then it comes to a turning point where they have an opportunity. And that opportunity is something the main character sees as something they can do, something they can be and try and do to change whatever the situation is. That turning point then leads them to a new situation in which they now have the opportunity leads to this situation where they say, okay, now I have something that could be a part of my life or something that I'm tasked with doing, right? And if you want to think about that in terms of a movie maybe you've seen, if you think about Gladiator, in which Maximus is then presented by the emperor with the opportunity to become take his place instead of his son taking his place. And so that opportunity leads to a change of plans, which is the next turning point, right? So you have the turning point of the change of plans is that he's going to try and go back to his family, but then Commodus kills the emperor, and that becomes a change of plans for him. So if you think about, again, the way things are set up, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go through each one of these stages, but this is kind of how it's all set up, right? So stage 3 would be the progress. We get progress in, we're taking specific actions, visible actions that we can then see what the character is doing to get ready for this whatever the opportunity was that the new situation, to accommodate that new situation. And that takes us up to halfway point in the script, right? So the halfway point in the script is always the point of no return. And that point of no return is something that the character realizes that they have to make a choice. They can either go ahead with doing whatever this, accommodating this new situation, this new approach, or this new threat is, and they can go ahead with that, or they can go back to their lives. And they have to make a choice, and usually you choose to go on and go against the threat or whatever. And then stage 4 is complications, right? So it becomes complicated, and the character realizes how complicated it is and tries to figure out what those complications, how they're going to deal with those. And so this may bring in other characters, and it causes drama, it causes tension in the movie. And then stage 5 is the final push. They're going to push to get everything done, push to finish the trek, finish do what they need to do to finish whatever their plan is, whatever the thing that you tasked them with doing. And then the final turning point is the climax. And the climax of it is usually where, you have an ending to all of the things that you expected. And again, to go back to Gladiator, the climax was the final battle between, Commodus and the Gladiator. And that way it's the Maximus and Commodus fight because there's a tension there, and this is a way to release the tension and to come to a conclusion. Now, a lot of films will end there, or they may tie up. Specifically, romantic type movies have a tendency to tie up and have an aftermath where you see people what's finalized, and find that what's done. And so all of these are kind of the pieces and parts that make up these scripts. And so Hitchcock also had what's called a MacGuffin. And a MacGuffin is a specific thing that a movie uses to drive the storyline. It's not necessarily required, but it is a good example, or it's a good thing to help drive that storyline. And one example of that, if you've ever seen Citizen Kane, and I hope that everybody that's watching this has probably watched Citizen Kane at one point or another, but if you've watched Citizen Kane, the MacGuffin is the last word that he said in his life was Rosebud. And so you start out the movie with him dying and reporters wanting to find out what this meant. What did Rosebud mean? And so you go through this arc of his life trying to find out from the reporters reporting on it what Rosebud meant. Excuse me while I take some coffee. And so we go through the whole movie wondering what Rosebud was, looking for it in interviews with people and looking for it every place in his life, and nobody's able to find where Rosebud was. And Orson Welles was a master filmmaker because at the end, he ties it up for you, the viewer, beautifully. Right. He presents a sled that Citizen Kane, or the Kane was had as a child, and it's burning up, and the word on the front of it is Rosebud. So that ties the entire movie together in one package, and it's a very satisfying ending because you, the viewer, get to figure out what it is. Now you've got a satisfying ending for you. You've been wondering what the term Rosebud referred to the whole movie, and now it tied it up for you. But you know more than the people in the movie do. And so that ends up being really a good example of it. And the other, I was thinking about all of this when I was watching again the day after tomorrow, and looking at the way they put the movie together. It's a very well done movie. And if you haven't seen that, it's a well-made movie. I wanted to leave you with something that you can do, right? So here's a scenario. Here's a scene. And by the way, scenes can follow that same set of stages. They just don't have to be as long or as fleshed out. So a scene within a movie can be like a little movie. So that helps you kind of to think about how these movies are put together. So we have the bigger movie, which has a full, idea of what it's coming through. And then you have these scenes that are little acts where they put these mini movies together. And so I want to give you a scene to think about, and you tell me what you think. So the scene is, I'm walking with my friends down a railroad track, and zombies are coming out of the woods on either side of the track. Now I look forward and I see a train trestle. And I know if I can get to that, if we can get to that train trestle, the zombies can't follow us. They won't know how to get across the trestle. I'm going to make the decision. We have the opportunity. We have the turning points. We have the opportunity or the challenge. What do we need to do? Do we stop and fight, or do we run for the trestle? And so we make the decision on the spur of the moment to run for the trestle, and we're fighting the zombies off as we go to the trestle. So someone falls down, and I pick them up and throw them over my shoulder and carry them to the trestle, and that's set up some of the tension there. And we get to the trestle, and we stop, and we turn around, and we look at the zombies coming. And as the zombies come up, they start to fall off the cliff. So they all start to fall off the cliff because they're too stupid to know to get on the trestle. A couple of them come on maybe, and then you kill them, but you're watching them fall off the cliff essentially. Then we say, well, cool. So we turn around and we see that more zombies are on the other end of the trestle, and they're also coming up and falling off the cliff, but they're blocking our way at the other end of the trestle. Now, how do you write these people out of that scene? Speak to me in the comments. I'd like to know what you do. So this is an interesting way to approach this, and I hope that you'll enjoy the thought experiment and comment on it and like this and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.